Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The History Squad. Now today's video, by request from my Patreon members, is about the 9th century East Anglian king, or Saint Edmund. There is so much about this guy, so much legend. There's pictures from the medieval times of him tied to a tree and shot through with arrows. Some say he died in combat. So we're going to have a little look into the legend. There is Saint Edmund, who became the first patron saint of England. Just doing the research for this subject of Saint Edmund, King Edmund, was very difficult because on one hand there is very little known about him. On the other hand, there is an awful lot written about him. So my sources are from Asa, the late 9th century Welsh monk and bishop, the Saxon Chronicles, the Winchester Chronicles, which are apparently written before then. And then there's a book by the Reverend McKinley. So I've used all of those as resources, as well as, surfing the net as you do. But before you begin this subject, you've got to look at England, 9th century, then go back before then. Imagine you're a Briton and the Romans are your masters. Things have been going quite well. The Roman Empire has settled, and then all of a sudden they've got to go. Well, you don't have a Briton army. It's gone. Long in history, it's gone. The Romans go, you are so vulnerable. And that's when Vortigern, who was a king down in what we now know Kent, invited over Hengist and I think his brother to bring some of their Saxon army over to help protect them about marauding Picts. Now that's actually wrong. When I said the Saxon army, it's wrong. They were the Jutes, and they're from a part of the world called Jutland, which is in modern day Denmark. And when they come over, yeah, they're going to do a bit of fighting for us. But let's face it, England, especially down in what they call the Garden of England, Kent in the south there, it's beautiful farmland. It really is. So if you see who actually did invade, because the Saxons, the Angles and the Jutes, who made up the Anglo-Saxons and the English, were invaders, and they were ruthless. And they settle. The poor old Britons were pushed off to the west because the Saxons pushed them away, settled the land, and they made a success of it. And that's the problem, because then you have other invaders coming, don't you? The Vikings. You can look at the first raid on Lindisfarne, where they struck down monks, just killed them as they were tending their fields, took away only the young, murdered everybody else. They didn't care, and they tore the covers off Bibles, holy books, because they got jewels on them. This is what they were. They were after treasure, they were after slaves. But this is recorded, how they slit the throats of children and just threw them by the side of the path, how they struck down men of all ages and captured women to take away as slaves and sell them on the slave markets in Northern Europe. These Vikings, they were barbarians. They were barbaric, vicious killers, to the point that they eventually depopulated parts of England, East Anglia particularly. So we're going to put up a map to show you the different parts, because it's interesting. Some of the parts of England, East Anglia, that's the Eastern Angles, Wessex, the West Saxons, Sussex, the Southern Saxons, yeah? So you have this whole carved up parts of England which still bear the name for the Saxons. So it's quite a complicated picture, and right in the middle of it, 9th century, we end up with a new king right over on the east there in East Anglia, and he is the very, very young King Edmund. We have a description of King Edmund. He was tall, well proportioned, deep blue eyes, handsome, but he had a great big nose. I love these little touches, do you? He was not English. He was born in the old homeland of the Saxons, northern Germany, just north of Hamburg, 841 AD. That's when he was born. He wasn't the natural heir to the little kingdom of East Anglia. Ethelweard had died. He hadn't an heir, so the elders look around, they go back to the old country looking for an heir, and they have a distant cousin, Edmund. So he becomes King Edmund. He was very young, and it wasn't a straightforward transition. It was a little bit rocky at first. But what they notice about this young man is how honourable he was, how fair, also a devout Christian. So you have this guy now on this eastern part of England. He's quite a guy. Everybody likes him. And if there's an encroachment onto his land, he will fight them. He is not a coward. He's not faint-hearted, but he is fair. And this is the thing that flows through the whole story of King Edmund, who became Saint Edmund. And don't forget, he was that patron saint of England. So way back in the 9th century there, they had a problem. Viking raiders, Danes, Vikings, call them what you will. It was these long ships. I've got a model here. This is incomplete. It's all part of something I'm working on in the future. But these long ships with their oars and their sails, they could, yes, get across what they called the German Sea. We call it the North Sea now. But they could even row up rivers. And as the eastern side of England was peppered with these great big rivers that went all the way inland, these men could raid deep into your kingdoms. And this is what's going to be such a major problem for East Anglia, and indeed the rest of England. You see, our story of Edmund continues with a lone boat, a fishing smack really, washed up on the shores of East Anglia. And on board there was Lothpark, a Danish chieftain. He'd been out hunting. He'd been out on his boat, and he got washed out to sea. He turned up cold and hungry on the shores of East Anglia. He was taken to see King Edmund. King Edmund straight away treats him nice, treats him fairly. He stays on. He doesn't go straight home. He stays on. He likes hunting. He likes sport. And eventually he is given to hunting with Edmund, King Edmund's own hunt master, Bjorn, I think was his name. And off they go together. But Bjorn gets very jealous of the prowess of Lothpark, how he can hunt, and he murders him, stabs him in the back. And there is kind of a legend within the story, because he doesn't come back, but his hunting hound does. It's hungry, then it runs away. And everybody's a bit confused with this. Then the dog doesn't come back. So after a few days, they go looking for the dog, who is howling near the dead body of his master, who has been stabbed in the back. Well, Bjorn was the last person to see him alive. He's the likely candidate. He's put on trial. They reckon he's guilty, but they're going to leave it to God's judgment. They're going to cast him adrift in Lothpark's boat. Bjorn, the hunter and the gamekeeper, is set adrift in Lothpark's boat, and he's going to drift on the same line, but back to Denmark. Now, when Bjorn gets washed up, he's taken by the Danes, and they go to see the sons of Lothpark. But Bjorn doesn't tell them the truth. Well, they want to know, what are you doing in our dad's boat, basically? And he says, well, what happened was this Danish prince, Lothpark, he gets washed up and he is taken to the King Edmund, who tricks him, brings him in, and then has him tortured as a spy, and they eventually execute him. It was terrible what they did. Straight away, the sons of Lothpark are absolutely furious. They are going to get some revenge. They are going to invade. So, the sons of the Lothpark, they're going to invade. They're going to get revenge. Now, there are different accounts of this. I'm going with the one I like the most. They invade, but they bring the hunter, Bjorn, with them. He knows East Anglia. He can come in down through the rivers. He can spy for them. He knows the best ways in. But they're beaten back several times by King Edmund. This guy, he doesn't stand idly. He will fight. And they meet, finally, 869 at Thetford. And there is a heck of a battle. The battle going on for hours upon hours and then stopping at the evening time. the Vikings retreat into their camp, and King Edmund stands there amongst the dead and the dying, and he's horrified. He can see what's happening. His country, East Anglia, is being ravaged. He doesn't like it, so he withdraws. Then an offer is sent to him by the sons of Loughpark. If you pay homage to us, you can keep your kingdom. And he had to consider this because he was vastly outnumbered by the Danes and the Viking army now. But the one thing that sticks is he's got to give up Christianity, go back to the old gods. And he's unwilling to do that. And it's a problem. But he puts his people first. He will surrender. But he doesn't surrender alone. He has a holy man with him, Bishop Humbert. So together they hand themselves over to the brothers. And negotiations begin. But the sticking point is this. King Edmund will not recount. He will not give up his Christian faith. And that's the big sticking point. So straight away, they kill the bishop with a sword. Single stroke, he's dead. And King Edmund is tortured. He's tied to a pillar in the church and he is whipped and flayed, but he will not recant. In the end, the brothers, they get fed up of this guy, give him to the archers, use him for target practice, help yourselves. And they shoot him, but being bowmen, they know where to shoot. Shoot him in the legs, shoot him in the arms. Don't shoot him through the heart or through the stomach. And they keep him alive for quite some time. And in the end, the brothers, they simply behead him. The head is hacked off, the body is thrown to one side in a pit, and the head, under the advice of Bjorn the Hunter, is thrown in a thicket so nobody can find it. Eventually, the Danes withdraw, and local Christians, they find the body of their king, but they can't find the head. It's about a year they try to find the head of their king, and they do a search of the area looking in the thickets for the head, and they're calling to each other. I'm over here. Yeah, I'm over here. I still can't find it. And then they realise that there's an extra voice calling out, I'm here. And they're all looking at each other. You can imagine the scene, can't you? Was that you, Bert? No, it wasn't me. Was that you, Jim? No, it wasn't me. And they go towards the voice. I'm here. I'm here. And eventually they find the head, which hasn't decomposed, of King Edmund. I'm here, it called out. So the legend is born. He was simply known as King Edmund. He wasn't anything special, brave guy, good guy and all that. But it was the Danes in 890 AD. They minted some commemorative coins. And on it talks about, or it marks, the Saint Edmund. So it was his enemy who actually promoted Edmund as a saint. There are miracles that happen and are attributed to Saint Edmund. He becomes the Patron Saint of England until Edward III, who dismisses him as our saint, and we have St. George. St. George! And it doesn't finish there. In recent history, I think in 2006, the newspaper and the BBC over in Suffolk, they petitioned the government to have St. Edmund reinstated as the true Patron Saint of England, because Edmund was English. Well, actually he wasn't, was he? Because he's from Germany. Yeah. So they fail. And so he is instated as the Patron Saint of Suffolk. And I love that, because that was his home. It was the place, East Anglia, that he actually fought for. And just a little note there. You might see I have a badge on my cap. I have been a member of a little guild of archers for a few decades now, and we are known as the Guild of St. Edmund. He is our patron saint. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video there, and we've opened up the legend of our original patron saint a little bit more. If you did enjoy the video, then like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the all notification button so you know what's coming on down the line. And a quick shout out to some of my Patreon members, Dave Dempsey, Patrick Moore and Nick Cooper. Hey guys, thanks a million. And notice, this didn't come off. Ha ha ha!